Hello and welcome to episode 44, actually, of building a Flutter game. We are building a 2D game which will have multiplayer support. We are making headway towards it. In the last episode, we were able to have the player move when thrust was applied, and we actually can see that for the other player as well. Any other player will basically see each other, and we fixed the fact that we didn't see thrust animations. Now we actually see that for our player. Now in this episode, what the goal is going to be is to have the player shoot. So what we'll do first, we'll make sure that actually we handle this correctly on the server, because then we can just start the server up and restart the clients as many times as we need them and figure out how to correctly do this on the client. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close all these windows, and we're going to go to the game loop, and we're going to look there where we would basically start with this. So we see here that the game loop basically is ticking, and it has a sync player inputs, right? So the ticking obviously is just simulating the world that the game loop knows about at that point in time. But whenever a player does something, we basically need to sync these player inputs. Now, we can see that the player inputs at this point don't contain any information about the fact that the player, shot. However, we do have the angle. So obviously when the player does shoot, we need to know which way was the player pointing at, so we know when we start the bullet, which velocity we need to give the bullet, right? It needs to be shooting in the direction that the player is pointing at. So first of all, we need to say final bool. We could call it created bullet, or we can call it, we call it here bullet, shot bullet. We just say we shot bullet, right? Okay, so now we have a new field here and that we will initialize. Okay, make it pretty. And now obviously we need to pack the input flags like this. We need to include the fact that the player shot bullet. And that field does not exist yet in our pack method, so we need to create it there. And it looks like we should always require that to be there. So we're going to put a required there, even though our required, as we all know, is disabled because it's part of Flutter, and so we can't use it on the server. So now actually what we're going to do, we're going to rename this to shot bullet to be consistent. And then we say if shot bullet, then flags.add player input flags dot shot bullet. Okay, so now we got this kind of working. So when we pack, we actually include this. Now when we unpack, we also need to get that back out. And whoever didn't watch the previous episodes and join this episode, the reason why we are converting all these booleans is because we're trying to save space, right? We can send all this information about which of these is true or false in like basically one integer, instead of having to send a boolean for each of them. So here we can just say player input flag dot shot bullet, and let's see if that, okay, so this actually, yeah, I don't like that. Let's keep it like this. And to be consistent, let's do that. And now we should just apply this here. Okay. And clone without events. We need to basically also say shot bullet is false, right? When we do that. All right. So now we should be okay. Let's double check our proto, and let's make sure that we actually have that defined correctly. So we, we have the, let's see, player client. So we have the player inputs here, and those are the packed player inputs. So there's nothing that changed. It's just that that field about the bullet being shot was always 0 for now, right? Like that field never was 1 because we never actually added that. information. So now we can, okay, there's one more thing here, right? When we do an equals, all right, so, and then the hash code should also, okay, so that looks good. We also may want to include this here. All right, so now we have, okay, it doesn't like that it's so long. So let's just split it here. All right, now we have updated the player inputs. And now we should go back to the game loop and look at when we're syncing player inputs that we actually are doing this correctly. So here we now need to say dot, okay, so that's interesting, right? So basically when we're syncing player inputs, right, I wanted to go and like add that information to the player model, but that makes no sense at all because we actually just need to create a bullet for this, right? So here we have the player inputs and we have the game state. So what we actually need to do, if inputs dot, so first of all, we need to actually put this in a variable, right? So we're going to say that the player is this, and we can actually do that like that. And then if we also applied short bullet, we actually need to say that player so-and-so shot a bullet, right? So we need to say the angle of the bullet is such and such, and the velocity is such and such. So we need to see how we did this actually in the game controller. Where's our game controller? Okay, so here we have, and we can see there's a bullets controller, right? So the bullets controller basically is created once, and we don't have the, we are not updating the bullets controller at this point. So the bullets controller would have, has basically a hold of the gamestate.bullets. And if we remember correctly, this is final, so we can't ever just remove it or reassign it, but we can add and remove bullets. So what I actually want to do is we could add this information here. Like we could basically have it add bullets to the in the game state class, or we could just directly do so. I kind of want to have this. So we have add player, right? So I kind of want to have an add bullet here, because so we have it in a certain in a good place. So we have one place where we do that. So what we need for this? We need basically to know what the angle is of the bullet. So we can actually look at the bullet model. So we need to calculate the current position where the bullet should be created. We need the velocity of the bullet. We need to set that from the angle, and then we have collide. So we already did this previously. We need to just figure out where did we actually have all that logic that was doing what I'm trying to do. So the bullet stuff. Interesting. So I wonder where, actually we probably should just go back to the bullet model and see where we were creating this before. Okay, so it's the only usage. I'm pretty sure so it might be in some comment, right? So then it doesn't find it. So let's move that, because I don't want to start re-implementing code that we already have, logic that we already figured out one time. Here we have something. There you go. So we said here, if the press keys contains fire, right? So that's basically that logic, right? So if you actually are firing, we basically create the bullet here. And let's just copy all that code out. And let's go back to our game state. I'm not a huge fan of having so much logic in the game state itself, but it doesn't hurt too much either. So I think we're okay. So basically what we're doing, we're taking the player's velocity and the player's angle. So let's just pass it in as functions here. So we have the offset and then we have the velocity. But this is actually the player velocity. So let's be clear about that. So then we can say, let's do the player velocity, the angle. And so the bullet force is something that comes from game props. So let's worry about that a little later. We need to, so I already don't like this. What I actually want to do is I want to add bullet and I want to, so let's just put this here for now. And I'm just going to say I want to add a bullet. I don't want to have all that logic here. We don't have that logic here either, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to put this somewhere else. I don't know where yet. And so here we just say that this dot bullets, or we don't need this, add, and we just add the bullet. And now we basically just need to figure out, we're also going to make sure that it can be null in a second. Where can we basically so let's see where the bullet is actually defined. Bullet model. It's defined in models, I suppose. Yeah, okay. So we don't want to have much logic here, but it needs to be shared. So we have the engine, we have controllers. And that's, it has to be here. It could also be part of the engine, but I don't think that's an engine thing. We have these kind of things here. What do we have in the, so we have helpers here, right? So let's just put it into the, let's just create a new file here called bullets. So now we're going to have a method here which basically will return as a bullet. And what we are actually going to, and we're going to just pass in a player model. And then we basically have the code pretty much as we had it before. So we just return this thing and we're just going to say this is the player.velocity, this is the player.angle. So now I don't want to directly access this bullet force from the game props here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a class that will hold that information. Bullets, just do that. I mean, we have another bullets thing. I think kind of a bullets kind of UI kind of component, but it's fine. We'll know which one is. So what we want to do, we want to import the bullet model and we want to import the player model as well. And then we need to import the physics. And now we're almost there. We just basically now need to say, when you create bullets, you need to give me the bullet force. So the bullet force is double, and it's going to be final. And so it's a bullet force. And it's a bullet force. And so we just need to set it here. There's nothing else going on, so for now we'll just leave it like this. We need, okay, so that's interesting. So we need the player angle. So there's a player size here. So let's just make this required name parameters. And so we're gonna also need the player size. So let's just go to the game props and see if that's already defined. It might have removed it. Player size. Okay, so there, and it's basically a double. So player size, and then we pass it in here. And I'm not sure why it's complaining. It probably wants me to do this. Okay, fine. And it doesn't know what required is, most likely. And it's still complaining. And, okay, so we can't do it this way. That's fine. So now we have player size. We have the bullet force. And now I'm wondering what game.players.type position. I mean, I would think that this would be the player type position, right? So now basically we're creating a bullet that's perfect for this player, right? The player is at a certain angle, and then we are actually scaling along this angle, and that's how we basically get the velocity, right? We get the starting position. Sorry, actually, like we have it backwards, right? So we get the starting position and the velocity right away. And the bullet hasn't collided when we create it, so that's false by default. Okay, so that's fine. Now we need to figure out where do we store these things. So let's go back where we actually want to use this, right? We want to basically just say inside our... So now this one we actually can remove. Well, we may not remove it yet. I'm going to remove this for now. This code we definitely won't need anymore. But I'm going to keep this in because we still need to also on the client side, right? When you fire, you probably want immediately to see a bullet. You don't want to wait for a server to get that you fired a bullet and then send you the bullet positions. That then finally you see the bullet you fired. You probably want that to be a little faster. So we also will, when we do the client side prediction, we also will create that bullet. But now we are mostly concerned about the server. So if we go back to the game loop, right, there was this place where we were syncing this. Okay. Okay, we're back. We're back here. So if we shot a bullet, right? Now we are in the game control, so that's beautiful because now basically here we can get ourselves. We have a bullets controller, but we can also. I mean, it's almost like you wanted this thing to be part of a. Right? You almost want it to be part of like that logic we just implemented in another bullets helper. But I mean, the controller controls bullets. It doesn't necessarily create bullets, I suppose. So we'll have a bullets creator or something like that. Actually, but that's what we're also going to do. Well, at least we will name it. Or let's just think about this again. Maybe we can actually move this logic. I mean, it's just basically... It has nothing to do really with creating, with controlling the bullets, right? So actually, let's name this bullets creator or spawner, right? That's what you call it in the game world. You spawn things, right? And so we also will call this spawn4, and we'll rename this one. No, I would like to rename. Actually, I would like to rename this file. It has been very hard for me to stay with the least mouse in like trackpad use in IntelliJ. It's just not possible. But it gives you a lot of other functionality, which is essential. So now we're going to go back to the game controller, and now we have a bullets spawner, and so we need to create this. So we have the bullet force here. We don't actually need this because now we're creating the bullet spawner with it. So we don't need this anymore. Instead, we're going to say a spawner equals bullet spawner, and it wanted the bullet force. And let's see, it also wants something else, player size. Okay. All right, so now we got the bullet spawner. It can be final, yes, I know. Let's put this on top. Now we have the spawner. Obviously, when I say here sync player inputs, and we actually have, so this is interesting, right? This game controller actually only the sync player inputs thing is only called on the server, which is interesting, right? It's only called here inside the game loop, even though the controller is shared for the client as well for these update methods. But that's fine. So here, all we're going to do is final bullet equals bullet spawner dot spawn 4, and we're going to pass our player, and then we're going to say this dot game state dot add the bullet, and that's it. So now basically once we shot a bullet, we do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously put a log here. So we have a game, we don't have a game controller log yet. But actually maybe we can just add it here. Do we have a log here? No. So let's create a log here. Okay, so now we can say log dot to find. This doesn't happen all the time, right? Spawning bullet. Now what we need to do obviously is to implement a nice toString method unless it already exists. So let's go to the bullet model. There's already a toString method. It says player should have been bullet, and type position velocity, and we need collided. And I'm always thinking like this is like too long. So we'll also do it, you know, kind of like how we did it somewhere else, where we kind of shorten this output a little bit because we know which is which in a way. The only things that could be confusing is the top position and so on, but and velocity, we could confuse those, but definitely we won't confuse collided for something else because it is a Boolean. So this makes this code also much shorter. All right, okay, cool. So we got that, we got the thing, and now we basically, when we spawn a bullet, we are basically logging this on the server. And in a way, now when we are processing the inputs, right? So let's go to the input processor. We are not handling yet anything regarding this. So basically, if the pressed keys right, so we got, yeah, so this one I actually want to invert a little bit. So before we do that, so let's do this and put this here. So what I actually want to do is I don't want to return early because we're going to have the same for if I can fire a bullet, right? So if I can apply thrust, I'm going to apply thrust, and then I'm going to also have, if I can apply we have the same thing if I can fire or shoot bullet. And for now, we're going to always return true, but we'll figure that out in a second. Why? Because we're also going to limit how often a player can actually fire or shoot a bullet. So now, so we need to surround this with can shoot bullet, right? All right. And so now, if the keys contains game.fire, now we're going to fire a bullet, or we're going to shoot a bullet. And you can start seeing that, you know, terminology here: fire, shoot. Be nice to have one. If it would have like one consistent name, but we'll be fine. Shoot and fire, same thing. So bullets. So if this contains fire, right, then we must say that player dot. So that's where it gets interesting. Right, shot bullet. Right, we need to set that to true. Actually, we don't. Actually, maybe we do. I don't know. I mean, it's almost like these are events. I already don't like this. Like we had this last time where where basically we are mixing kind of states of the player, which is like the player has a certain velocity, the player has a certain position, it has a certain angle. We are kind of mixing that with events that like are one-off things, right? I fired a bullet, and then or applied thrust, and we're running into all kinds of problems. And I think at some point, if we need to actually have an episode that's going to be longer and a little less interesting, but basically cleaning these things up again. For now, basically, because the thing is, like, we can now set this, we can send this now to the server, and we can say the player fired a bullet, but it's just not super clean. But we'll have to do it this way now to be consistent, because we did the same with the thrust, and at some point we'll clean it up. I promise. So we're gonna have a shot bullet here, and I don't like it even while I'm typing it, but you have to go step by step sometimes, and just make things work first, and then clean things up later. But we have to have that episode where we actually go and clean things up. So we have this, blah, 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 pack player model. Why? Oh, the thing is we are not even sending this to the server, right? Oh, this might actually be why we never thought thrust. Huh. Well, let's see. So we are setting shot bullet to true. So maybe so then basically let's just go with the flow. Player.shot bullet. Right? Okay, fine. Now, what needs to happen now? We need to go to the player controller and tell the player controller that if I shot a bullet, you need to actually you need to create a bullet. And that's where it gets a little bit dirty, because the player has no notion of spawning bullets now, right? Like, it shouldn't have. It's more like we need to go. So the bullets controller has a game of bullets, right? But it has no way, so it can update these bullets once they are there, but it has no way of saying I want to spawn one. But what we can actually do here is we are going through all the players, right? So what we can also do is, if basically one of these values. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to assign this. So basically the player equals extra value. And so if the player dot shot bullet, now we're going to say I thought we had an add bullet here. Right, so we have game state bullet. Okay. So what we're going to do, we are going to move this into a method. And we need the player. All right, so, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this log message. Well, actually, we know if this is running on the server, right? Or on the client. So we are fine. So we're going to say spawn bullet. And it's going to be of our player. Okay, so we got that, right? And now we can say the same thing. We can say that, okay, if the player shot a bullet, then basically spawn a bullet. And it's of the player. Okay, so that's like basically one line add. So actually I want to make this a little simpler. Okay. So we update the player controller, or we update the player. This one will add the bullet. Okay, right? So now, and then we update the bullets controller, which will basically go ahead and it has the reference to the same bullets that we just added stuff to. And then it will basically move these bullets. And when we then render, which is somewhere else, we need to make sure we render them. And right now, basically, even if the server doesn't work yet, even if the server doesn't add our bullets in its game state, we should still see bullets. What we need to do then is we need to actually sync the bullets coming from the server, right? And if, for instance, our bullet doesn't exist anymore, we need to remove it. But let's go piece by piece. So now we actually need to go into the, let's just start in the client game, because that's where we can easily see this. Where basically here we have the update, right? But then we have the update UI. And here we already have bullets, update sprites. And so we have bullets, we should actually start seeing them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the levels and make sure we only have one player here so far. We want only one. I'm going to make our life easy. And then basically we just want to see if, I think the server will not even do anything with our bullets yet. But we should start seeing bullets appearing on the client, right? Because even though the server may not know yet that we have a bullet, the client-side prediction will use those bullets and will basically render them, right? And we'll keep doing so. So let's see how that works. But let's while this is loading up, we can already start looking. Basically, we have this one sync method that I never can remember where it is. Okay, we have some errors there. We're gonna get to it in a second. But basically, this is where here we need to basically update the bullets, right? So when the server sends us this information, we need to update it here. Okay, but let's see what's happening in our little game here. We have a little problem. A Boolean expression must not be null. Okay, so I guess somewhere we are not setting the bullets to something. Player inputs. Let's see. Required bullshit. But I think when we're packing, we're not passing this. Okay, so we are. Shot bullet is basically this. When we are creating this, so this is where it really sucks that our required basically doesn't really give us any. It doesn't really give us any security here, because even though this is required, like it doesn't enforce it, right? We don't get any warnings. Let's look through this. So we got shot bullet, and here we're basically applying them. When we unpack, and contains will obviously return true or false, so it can't be null, right? That's bool. Now the applied, so here we're creating them, fine. I don't think that's where it is. So let's actually just stop this because it's going crazy. Let's start to figure out where this is happening. Messaging, pack, when we are packing. It seems like this one was null. But we are calling it with shot bullets. So somehow this thing must have been null when we call pack. Okay, so here's where the problem is, right? And usually we would get a warning, but since this is not working, we are having a little harder time. We're getting these runtime errors. So basically what I could do though is I could probably go and see where we have all these weird types to make this work, right? Here we have placement types. So if I go here and I actually comment this and uncomment this and then refresh analysis, it should actually now give us the right warnings. See, there you go. This is what I want. So this is like a little trick you can do, right? Because we have to remove this again once we are done with this fix, because otherwise we can't run this just with Dart, because unfortunately the required thing is part of Flutter. See, we have a lot of places actually, so this was a good idea to do this that way. Interesting. So basically we are not getting this out here at all. Interesting. So also when we're packing, we're not. Oh, because we didn't want to include this actually. That's correct. We purposely didn't want to include this. So these two are actually not required in the player model. And here you can see when we create this with null, we're actually setting it to false. Let's see what else we get here. Okay, so we can do that. That's fine. Okay, well that's way down here somewhere, where we haven't looked in a while. Okay, so now we've fixed a bunch of things. And now we can go back to the Dart types. And we can now do it this way. And now we can basically at least run the game. So now we have much less warnings in here. It's just basically about logs that we are using once in a while. I don't want to always remove them, so we'll just leave them here. Okay, so now we should be in a better position. And so let's start this again. So let's see. And that's why, fortunately, we don't have to restart the client every time we change something. Okay, so now we got this. Okay, we still got an exception. We'll figure that out in a second. So I can move, right? We should be able to move. Okay, and I should be able to shoot. Okay, I'm shooting. Oh, wow, awesome. So we are spawning bullets. And you can see that we're spawning bullets like really like crazy, like way too many. Like I press once and it even spawned 3 bullets. So not something we want, and we'll fix it in a second. But I can shoot now, as we could way long ago when we didn't try to make this multiplayer yet. So we're slowly getting to where we want to go. So now let's see what else. Keys not M. So I think this is something in the Flutter framework. And as you all know, we are using a we can see now when we're spawning bullets. This is crazy, way too many bullets. But we are using a kind of development branch of Flutter, so we can actually run this on Mac. You can see, like, I press once, and the shortest I can do is like this many bullets. So we need to do something there. But I want to first of all check this in, because this is something that's working. And before we go and change a bunch of things, I want to. So we cleaned some things up too. But mainly this was all related to adding bullets. So I think this is good. We don't have to go through all of these. Is there an extra file? Yeah, we need to actually add these. Let's see. This is this one was, we renamed this to bullet spawner, so we add this here. And now we just basically will check this in. Bullets spawning bullets client side. So the thing is, why I'm saying client side is because the server, I think, doesn't really know it about the bullets. And if it does, then we are not actually listening to any of the bullet state that's coming from the server. So let's see. So we actually will keep this running. And what I want to do is I want to limit the bullets that I can fire or that I can spawn. And we had this basically inside the input processor, where we're saying time between thrusts, right? So we're going to do the same thing between for bullets, and we basically just do something very similar. And yeah, if we would do this for more things, I would start maybe thinking that we may require like a kind of like we may require a class that kind of does this kind of behavior, but for now we just have 2 things, so we are fine. So time between bullets, all right, and it's the same for now as the thrust, but we just already put it here because we might change it later. We might have more bullets than thrust, or the other way around. So now basically what we can do here, we say that the time between bullets is smaller or equal than time since last bullet. All right, cool. So now time since last bullet is minimum of time last bullet and the time between bullets. We're usually repeating a bunch of code for another variable, time since last bullet plus dt, right? So basically this is how we already went through how this works in the other episode. We basically just keep adding to the time since the last bullet, and once enough time has passed, then this can shoot bullet, we actually return true, and then we can shoot a bullet. And then obviously when we do shoot a bullet, then we need to set this to 0, and time since last bullet is 0. Okay, so now actually this should already work. So let's, okay, so something is not happy. Oh, that might be because we have to maybe do a hard restart, because we are requiring things from the game props, right? So every time we are yeah, so you see, like, this is happening, we are getting yeah, okay, no, actually this might be, so the input processor, yeah, we need to recreate this guy, and this might not be happening correctly when we are, right? So actually let me try this one more time to do a hard restart. It's not really doing it. Yeah, so we actually need to stop it and restart it from scratch, because it's not applying this change for some reason. Like, you know, where we're basically passing in time between bullets, it's not, it must be because we added a field and things like that. So some things just don't work with a restart. Oh no, actually it could have been this one. Yeah, so this was what it was. Time since last build. I'm blaming Flutter. You always, right? You always blame someone else, but it was probably because I didn't assign this one. And And that's why it probably makes sense to just assign him here so you don't forget it, but it's fine. So now we have, we shouldn't have the problem anymore. We still have a problem. Okay, so let's do a hard restart. Method plus was called a null. This is exactly, where are we getting this? Just stop for a second. Here, a 55. Why would time since last thrust now not work? That doesn't make any sense. Unless we screw something up when we initialize here. I'm not entirely sure what could be a null here. Time between thrusts is set, and time since last thrust should be set too. And it's going quite crazy over here. And let me actually just what in the world? Why is this happening? Let's just stop it for a second. We have to restart anyway, so time between thrust and time since last thrust. So we just need to make sure. So it's like plus CT was right. So this was called a null. So it's one of those: time since last thrust or time since last bullet. However, time since last thrust is set here, and time since last bullet is set here. And then I don't think we ever reassign any of those. And time since last thrust is the same story. So I'm very confused, and unfortunately we can't debug on Macs, but we can debug on the phone, which for some reason it's not recognizing. Let's see. All right, so now it should actually recognize the phone. Okay, cool. So now what we actually do, I'm going to launch it on the phone in debug mode. And so when we get the same problem again, we can put a breakpoint. But I'm going to start it up first and let it run and see what happens there. And I just basically want to get this one thing done. We are firing bullets on the client, and I just want to basically throttle it. And then we can worry about having the server handle this correctly, and then syncing to the client and so on. We can handle that in the next episode. But at least I want to get this working before we finish. So all we have to really do is, like, once we get these error messages, we just put a breakpoint here, and then we should be fine. It should stop. Oh, I don't like that. Is it still doing it? Oh, a streamed install didn't work. Is this going to work? I'm watching my phone. It's showing blank, basically. Oh, it can't connect to the server, most likely. So that's not going to work either. It's going to be waiting for players. Okay, so yeah, I don't want to have to set this up now. We're going to have to put some some real server somewhere to where we can just connect easily from the phone without giving the phone my IP and all these things. Basically what I want to do then is I'm going to actually to log all these things. Log.find, and we're going to just log all these values. That one and that one, and then we're going to easily see which one is null. And those two. So that's what you do if you can't debug. Sometimes it's actually more efficient, especially if things are happening very fast. Debugging doesn't work very well. So it's not happy because it wants us to have it separate. All right. Why is it so complaining now? All right. So now let's just launch this again and let's see what we're logging out. Unfortunately, I might have to. I'm hoping that the next dev version of Flutter will allow me again to debug on OS X. Right now, that is unfortunately broken. It's not working. And we are passing this, yes. So I'm not sure. Yes, I'm at a loss a little bit of what can be null here. Oh, somehow this one decided to quit. That's interesting. So we should, when the server is running, we should be able to do with a hard restart. We should be able to get going. Okay, so okay, now we're logging it, and now we're not getting the exception anymore. That's really odd. And somehow it's hard, like something is actually taking a bunch of energy and CPU. Maybe it's because we're logging that much. So let's actually remove this log again. It seems like we are fine now for some reason. Okay. So we're not. The only thing is that still we are shooting. So even if I hold, so now I'm holding the key down, and I'm shooting. And what I'm wondering is about. Yes, it's throttled now, but why am I shooting like so many bullets at once? Could it be because I'm not cleaning up? Yes, that could be. So remember how we had the cleanup method? I think it's on the game controller. So let's look there. I think we had a cleanup. Yeah. So basically we need to clean up. And here we need to also say that player shot bullet is false. So that's what we are missing. All right. And obviously now it wants me to most likely do it the beautiful Dart way that it wants me to do it kind of chained. Something is hogging my machine at this point. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I hope it's not our game. But now actually if I do a hard restart, we should see the effect of the fix. So all right, so let's see. Okay, now I'm shooting one bullet. Yeah, and you see how it throttled? Beautiful. The thing is, you might argue, like, I want to shoot more bullets. And so what we can do, we can say, go to game props, and then we can tweak this. And this will just be one tweak. I'm going to say we can shoot bullets every twice as often as applying thrust, maybe. And actually what we'll do is, I already thought about this, once we get this in a better state, we can then have indicators here that kind of give you an idea of when you can shoot again. Right, so basically something that goes up, like kind of like a bar that goes up when you can shoot, and when you shoot it goes down, and then it grows and it takes about 250 milliseconds to grow, so you know exactly. And so now we can, actually this didn't apply. I need to maybe do a hard restart. And I really would like to know why everything got so slow suddenly. I have no idea. I'm just going to kill some process that I see that shouldn't be running anymore. But okay, so this seems a little better. But now I can basically see, okay, now I shoot. This is reasonable, right? We don't have this cool effect anymore where we're just shooting and shooting and shooting, but I think this is kind of makes it a little harder to shoot somewhere, right? We don't want to just be able to go like crazy and just spawn like tons of bullets. We want to, it should be a little more orchestrated, right? So we have bullets, they're exploding, and I think this is a good place to stop. So let's real quickly look at what we have. So we did, yeah, we just basically did everything to throttle bullets. That's pretty much all this commit is about. And then also we are cleaning up bullets. So that's pretty much it. So, and this is all still client side. Throttling bullets, throttling and cleaning up bullets, client side. Okay, good. So this will be all for today. I'm going to tag the current episode end. And thank you for watching. And make sure to watch the remaining episodes. You can see that things are now actually coming together, finally. We can actually do one more thing before we go. We should, well, what we'll do is we'll show that certain thing is not working yet. Actually, we don't need to show this. On the start of next episode, actually, we'll look at, does this work with two players yet, right? Can I see the bullets of the other player? And my expectation is no, because we didn't connect things with the server yet. So all these bullets that you're seeing are all just client-side prediction, right? So the client basically predicts where the bullet would be, and it basically also does explosion, all these things, but I don't think the other player could see our bullets. So that's what we'll do in the next episode. Make sure to join, and thanks for watching.